Awesome. Welcome to another Monday night. How are you, my dear?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good. Just getting our friends over here on Instagram added.
Yep, me
Uh,
too. So, welcome everyone. Welcome to, of course, YouTube. Welcome to our three Facebook groups, our two Instagram groups, Twitch and Rumble. And these will be uploaded to iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. So, again, welcome everyone. So, how was your Monday, Becky?
It was good. Typical Monday for me. With a few changes for March, but a typical Monday. So, work, all that fun stuff, right? But a few changes since it is the first Monday of March. I have new goals and we'll talk about that, but new goals, new month, new plans. So yeah, I can't wait to get into it. But how was your Monday? I know you had a busy one.
I had a very busy one. So I started a new project, and for those of you that don't know, I am a software trainer. So we had to. I prepped all weekend and all last week, and I trained 5 1-hour classes today. So I was like, I am so talked out tonight. I don't want to hear my own voice,
We get that way sometimes, which it's okay.
right? So, yeah, nothing exciting. It basically it was back to back. I had about a 45-minute break for lunch today. I did go outside during that lunchtime and at least got some UVB. Uh, it was cloudy, but I know I'm still getting it. So I was out
Mhm.
there for a little bit. Yeah, I mean, we made dinner tonight and I just finished dishes and here I am. That was my exciting Monday.
It's like one thing right into the other, right?
It
It's just
was.
it's funny how we end up when we roll that way, and that's kind of how my morning was. I multitasked this morning and got my meal prep done. Got it all set for the week, and that kind of helps me, stay on plan or stay on track for the week. Because then I don't just grab junk, right?
Yeah,
Or whatever's convenient, as far as even just some simple, food sources, if you will, and keeps me away from the meal replacement shakes or those, foods that aren't quite 100% optimal.
right.
And it really doesn't take me that long. I know it's a little bit different for me because I have the space, right, that I can do that. Unlike, where in your situation, you're in a little bit more confined area, smaller fridge space.
Yeah.
So things like that wouldn't help you as you're busy and planning and training and doing all these workshops. But I did have someone on Instagram reach out. And speaking of, if you guys have any questions, whether you're watching us on Instagram or any of the other platforms, feel free to put them in the comments and the chat. Um, Let us know if you have any questions. It's just a general chat. We didn't necessarily have anything planned for tonight, so if you have questions, let us know. We'd be happy to answer them. But I had someone earlier reach out to me in regards of my meal prep that I was doing because I put it in my Instagram stories this morning, and they had made the comment that they didn't have time
Mhm.
and that it took them, a lot of time. But in all reality, kind of like what I was discussing in the BNC community the other day about, we went and we got half a beef, and it was a large sum up front. We have the freezer space for it, but in the long run, it's like little over $3 a pound. And that's for
Right.
steaks, that's for roast, that's for, hamburger. You can't even go to the store and get it on sale, which isn't great, right? Because typically that's feedlot. It's better than, nothing. But um this is we've gotten from the same farmer for the last 6 years. And so in that aspect, when you kind of take that into even like the meal planning, Sure, it takes me, about an hour, maybe hour and a half, to do everything. And I have one of those ovens that has like the smaller top oven and then the bigger, on the lower. Um, and so I just simply, when I plan my food out, I mean, you and I have talked about it, right? You went grocery shopping this weekend. I go grocery shopping on the weekend because my work week doesn't allow me to get to the store during the week. And so I plan out, well, what do I have in my house, right? I'm going to end up and use that up first. And it's always what protein do I have? Obviously, like I said, we just got half a beef. I've got beef. I could eat that every meal, but I get kind of tired of that um, every meal of the week. You can only change it so many ways of making taco meat, making meatballs, making, meatloaf, making,
Yeah.
and my family's not big on chicken, and I know your husband isn't either. So I don't know about you, but most of my evening meals revolve a little bit more around red meat.
Yes.
So I kind of leave that. I personally like chicken, I like turkey, I like fish. My kids, well, my son anyway, he'll eat salmon. My daughter will eat shrimp. So, there's times where I can make that and get away with it in the evening, but it's not something that they would always approve of. So I just keep the peace. And for instance, like tonight, I made taco meat. I ate meat and they, ate tacos. But I look at like what protein do I have? Well, I had one of those turkey breasts in the freezer. I had some fish in the freezer. Um, I had some bacon in the fridge and some sausage in the freezer. So I'm like, okay, bacon, sausage it is for breakfast. And then the turkey and the fish I made for my lunch. Red meat, I'll cook during the week depending on what the family is doing. Um, and then it goes to what as I eat, right? I incorporate vegetables. What vegetables do I have in the house? Or what do I need to add to the grocery list? And I look at non-starchy vegetables and starchy. So 2 days a week, I end up and I add those starchier vegetables, things like a sweet potato or, you know, um, but like I said, it's 2 days a week. So I really don't need a whole, 5-pound bag of potatoes or a bunch of potatoes necessarily, unless the family's going to eat them. So then, I plan that out. I plan my non-starchy vegetables to add in there. And I will normally have 2 non-starchy vegetables on my lower carb day. And then I'll have 2 days a week that have the higher carb. So I plan that and get what I need, cook it up. Like I said, today the turkey went in the Instant Pot, the fish, the bacon went in the oven, the sausage went in the skillet. The vegetables got, after the proteins were all done, I threw the vegetables on a pan with some parchment paper and broiled them off. And like I said, it was an hour. Everything was done. And then I just plated it up or bowled it up essentially. And it was, like I said, an hour, hour and a half. And my meals are done. So I don't have to cook for the kids during the week, cook for myself during the week, plan around everything else during the week. It speeds things up in the long run. And so really, if you just are able to take that time and get it done, it doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be, all these expensive recipes, right? I made them simple.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing for anyone is just, you don't need this big spread or, you know, coupon mom organizational skill, spreadsheet, etc. I don't even have it up here. I have a little like shopping list that had my meals. Well, I listed out my protein and then I, like I said, figured out what non-starch, low glycemic carb was in season. And for me, figured out what I wanted to put in there. Of course, we're coming into, I know you said the UVB, we're coming into, spring and that higher UV index. So those carbs are starting to transition
Mhm.
into more of spring than wintertime ones. But and then I'll also put fermented foods in there. Today I had more of like a fajita bowl. I had chicken and some peppers and cauliflower rice, and then I put a little bit of Hex Ferments has it's like a kimchi sauerkraut combination, and it's got that spicy mix to it. It was really good.
Mm. Hmm.
So I still got the ferment in there, even with the protein source.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Mhm.
definitely, well, it's funny because I got up this, so when I plan, I'll back up for a minute. When I
Mhm.
plan our meals, we have to plan it to where we can eat off of it for 2 nights. So then I'm making, only a few meals in a week. And again, we have a very small refrigerator. We can't make a lot of extra stuff. Uh, and we are having to go to the grocery store a lot more often to get what we need because of our living situation. But like tonight, we had a shrimp dish and we made enough that we will have that again tomorrow evening for dinner. When I went to the grocery store yesterday, I planned it to where what can because I'll have about 45 minutes in between class times uh, that I can eat something. So I don't have time to really cook anything or anything like that. So I had to really think about what I was going to eat for lunch. And it's funny when I woke up this morning, and I always try to eat within an hour upon waking because it helps with my cortisol. So cortisol naturally raises, and when you're a type 2 diabetic, a lot of times it keeps raising. And what I found was eating within that first hour upon waking kind of, yeah, it raised a little bit more, but it stopped it in its tracks and then it trended back down. And it still holds true today. So I really wasn't hungry when I got up, but I went ahead and ate. I ate my eggs, bacon, and I had a yogurt. So fermented foods that I mix in on top of the eggs when I'm done cooking the eggs. And because I knew that I wasn't going to get much for lunch. And by the time dinner came around, I was like, I could feel that my blood sugar was starting to drop. So those are the days where the extra things, the chomps, beef sticks, things that you can do quickly, fill in and around those type of meals. But for the most part, I plan out what we're going to eat every week, and sometimes we eat the same things within that week after week, like tacos. Tacos is a big thing in our travel trailer. No, I was going to say house, but it's travel trailer. Um, but it's easy to fix, and basically, I make a taco bowl for me, um, and just put a little bit of maybe a little bit of cheese and tomato if I bought a tomato, and it's a little bit of lettuce and a little bit of hot sauce. Like that's it. I just make a little taco bowl, and so it's a quick and easy thing. We make enough that we have leftovers the next night. So that's kind of how I plan things. Now, before we sold our house, you better believe I would make things ahead of time. I was always planning. I had the room. I had a big refrigerator that I could store things in. So it's been definitely an adjustment. And I would say to someone that says, I don't have the time to meal prep, we always have the time to do what is important to us,
Mhm.
right? So, is it
Yep.
important that I go outside and see the sunrise, the sunset? Well, there was a time where it wasn't important enough, and I paid the price for it with my health. It's funny how that became a priority, and that is what I call and you call a non-negotiable. There are just
Mhm.
certain things that in order to heal the body, um, you need to keep that consistent. And having things on hand, a meal prep, is is making sure that you don't fail. Because when you're hungry, you are going to grab the nearest thing. And it may not be
Mhm.
the most healthy thing. And that's where people fall off. I see it time and time again. And I'm sure you do too.
Yep. That's where the emotional eating ends up and comes into play too, right? They're either tired or they have decision fatigue or they're so hungry they've gotten beyond the point of even mindful eating. I see it a lot in people that are mindlessly eating and they just grab what's there because one, they're hungry, and two, they've gotten beyond that point of being hungry. So they're no
Hmm.
longer looking for that nourishing meal. They're just looking for what can I end up and I grab. And that's why when I put out my new month goals, right? A fresh new month, fresh start, however you want to look at it. Monday, first Monday, new Monday, whatever, I hear it all the time of I'll just start Monday or I'll just start the beginning of the month or I'll just, but start now. Start today. There's no reason why you can't make some of these changes today and start to gain that consistency, start to gain and make your meals, start to, stack some of these habits that we end up when we talk about. I know you talked about going out for the morning sunlight, right? A little less
Hmm.
screen time. We you and I even discussed this today of, the blanket statement of being able to get outside.
Right.
Well, it's not necessarily, especially now that the UVB window is opening, it's not necessarily going and sitting hour, 2 hours,
Right.
soaking up the sun for the busy individual, right? For the busy working person, maybe that just means taking your meal and sitting outside. Get a lawn chair, get a folding chair, get a picnic table, whatever the case may be, and take that outside. I was on a coaching session for uh, a gal with thyroid issues because that's, one of the things that I dealt with.
Hmm.
And I told her, I said, she's like, but I want to do my red light and I want to do my breakfast and I want to do, she had like this list of things. And I said, you know what? I sat with my breakfast and I sat with my red light and I stacked those practices together. Um, and I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be consistent. And that's where many people fall is
Right.
they try to make it perfect. They try to end up and, go outside in your tanning through swimsuit or, as minimal clothing as what they can. And they try to do the sunlight. Well, lay in the grass and get the grounding with it, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it's also sit there with your legs up on a picnic table so that you have, more surface area exposed to the sunlight and get that while you're eating your lunch. Be more mindful, less rushed because we all have the same amount of hours in a day.
Hmm.
It's just how we use those. And that's where a lot of people are getting burnout. They're not even taking the small steps.
Right. They jump into too many big steps, right?
Mhm.
They try to do all the things, all the changes at once. And honestly, you're setting yourself up for failure. When I tried that, I failed.
Mhm.
So it was the small little things that I can control and add on. And it's funny now because, again, I make the time to go out and get the sunrise. Before it was like, I'm not getting up that early and going outside. It wasn't a priority, right? I wanted my sleep. Why did I want my sleep? Why did I want to sleep in? Because I wasn't going to bed consistently. Why wasn't I going to bed consistently? Because I couldn't shut down and go to sleep. It's like a vicious circle, and most people
Mhm.
don't understand that, oh, if you do get up and go out consistently, and get the morning sunrise, which is a UVA, um, you'll find a change. And of course, wearing just simple blue blocking glasses. Um, this is a non negotiable at night. When that sun goes down, they go on. And I sleep so differently than when I started. Um, so, but I guess
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
well, and that's kind of where I had the question over the weekend of what is the best time for physical exercise? You know,
Mm,
because they try to put stack that in there. Of course, those that have seen me on Instagram know that I've gotten back into the dungeon, right? And I've started to share them also over here on YouTube as well. But what I've been asked that question, what is the best time to do physical exercise? And my response to her was the best time is the time that you can be consistent with it, but still get recovery.
right,
So, that doesn't necessarily mean for most people that when you get off work at 5 o'clock, that you can end up and go and hit the gym.
right.
Because if your body isn't going to recover, which let me end up and clarify because I got that pointed out to me too of what do I mean by recovery? So by recovery, what I mean is what is your resting heart rate doing? What is your body temperature doing? How well do if you increase your core body temperature, are you sweating? Is your body temperature coming back down? Is your heart rate coming down? Um, the other thing that gets stimulated with exercise is glucose. So, doing it too close to bedtime when your glucose is elevated and you potentially have more insulin flowing in the system as well, that's going to prevent the melatonin from taking over too. So, going back to what you were saying in regards of proper sleep, if you end up and you have, this factored in there or, sauna time or anything along those lines, and you're not getting that recovery and you're not getting that time to wind down in the evening, then you're not going to end up and have that quality sleep. And I know myself well enough that I would say 90% of the time, 99% of the time, um, my sleep at one isn't influenced by exercise. If I have a bad night's sleep, but I know myself well enough that I personally can put my exercise between 5 and 6. I schedule it like it is a coaching session.
Hmm.
I schedule it in there because otherwise it doesn't get done.
Right.
And that's how I've been able to be consistent with it. I schedule it, I get it done, I get the recovery side, um, and I still get that good sleep of over an hour and a half of deep sleep, over an hour and a half of REM sleep. So, like I said, unless there's other factors that interfere with my sleep, but that's not to do with any lifestyle factors. That's children related.
Children.
But
Yep.
so I get moms that have infants and toddlers too that disrupt sleep. But all of this to say that really trusting yourself, trusting your goals, setting what's important to you, um, and just taking those small steps because they do add up. And progress isn't going to end up in being linear. It's sometimes it's a mess, but it's all about are you progressing and are you showing up again and again for yourself? It's not
Yes.
what, you know, Mary Beth or Sally Sue over, on Instagram and Facebook are doing. The only person you have to compete with is yourself.
Yeah. So speaking of that, so last week I spoke to a group. I was invited to be a guest speaker, and you were in on that.
Mhm.
And I was talking kind of about my journey, and what I went through and so forth. And you noticed a very popular question, and it was about what were my macros.
Mhm.
And thank goodness the person talking to me, kind of interviewing me, did not ask me that question. And had she asked me that question, I would have not told anybody what my macros are because I have to adjust my macros according to what's going on. I know you've adjusted your macros now that you're working out.
Mhm.
So what works for me isn't going to work for you, and what works for you is definitely not going to work for me. And but people really did not know. They were very. It's like they wanted to mimic me. I guess, right?
Mhm. And that's what they end up and they wanna do is they try to, mimic and they try to replicate, and so when
Mhm.
they and that's also why on my Instagram, when I do my meal prep, I don't put the macros either.
Right. Right. I think you had a question, what, a week ago when you did that, and somebody asked, well, what size of your containers were they?
Yeah, they ended up and they asked me the size. So they never asked me quantity, but
Hmm.
they asked me the size, and that's one of the things that I won't put in my Instagram, and I haven't, is how many ounces or how many grams. I used to end up and give my macros all the time. But there again, having 8,000 plus followers on Instagram and you get maybe, 10% of them that try to replicate, well, they'll end up and come back to you and say, well, that doesn't work. Well,
Right.
are you me? Are you doing the
Yeah.
exact same thing that I'm doing? Do you have the same metabolism as I do? And I get that since we're on that topic,
Okay.
um so it dawned on me because I've also been sharing my meal prep in a couple of the other groups that I coach for too. And that's where I've also got the question of how I'm looking for the comments specifically. Um because it was in regards of how would you adjust this if you were looking for weight loss? So I'm not quoting it direct because I don't have
Hmm.
the quote in front of me. Yeah, and I can't find it at my fingertips. Normally I'm pretty quick on drawing those, but it was in reference of somehow how would you adjust this meal prep if you were looking to lose weight? And my response was the prep that I did,
Right.
I wouldn't adjust it. And they were kind of, and I wasn't meaning it sarcastically. And the reason why I say that was because okay, so there I found it. Um so it was a lot of thank you. What would you change if you were trying to lose weight? And I said, and based on this meal prep, nothing,
Yeah.
because it's what works for me. So when
Right.
they end up and they look at that meal prep and they're thinking, you know, that was also where they got the question come in of, how big are these containers? Well, my containers are, 6 plus cups size of containers. So fairly good size containers. And for me and my activity level and what I do, I don't need to adjust it. I
Right.
mean, I weighed in this last week and I was down 2.3. So it works, right? But there again, it's not always about restricting. And that's the other thing that gripes me and irritates me with many people on Instagram is they try to restrict and restrict and restrict or eliminate and eliminate and eliminate, and they're doing themselves a disservice. So it's not
Yeah.
about eating less or even eating less often for that matter,
Ugh.
because I eat 3 meals a day.
I do too.
So, when I get people saying, "Well, I have to fast, and only eat 1 meal a day," or I get the occasional, okay, life gets busy and you skip dinner 1 day a week, right? Or you get busy and kind of like you skipped lunch, right? Or
Right.
you maybe had a Chomps meat stick or something along those lines,
Right.
and it wasn't a full meal.
Right.
I get those days, but it's these people that will white knuckle and push or even try to restrict and try to, lose weight. Again, it's not always about eating less to see the results that you're seeking. So find your goal and find what works for you.
Well, and I don't think people realize that when you are constantly restricting, you're only getting a certain number of calories, macros, whatever. Your body gets used to that.
Mhm.
So then they fast harder, they fast longer because,
Mhm.
oh my goodness, I gained weight, right? Um, they don't realize that you have to maintain a certain amount of caloric intake as well.
Mhm.
Or your body is going to go, oh, okay, well, apparently we're in starvation mode. So I'm going to, hang on to everything you got inside this body because apparently there's a famine and I don't want you to die. That's what their body is saying to you. Like people don't realize that.
Yep. Well, and if they end up and they aren't losing weight, and this is why, a part of my goals for this next month were, one, to try and work on the stress side of things and get that reined in and a grasp on it. But also the aspect of the circadian and the movement and the nutrition and all that side, because if your body is holding weight, and trust me, I can end up and see it if I go back and I look at my chart in regards of when my body held on to weight, it's because the mitochondria of our body, right? So it's not always about calories in, calories out, right? When we take this down, again, anyone that knows me knows I go into like the circadian and the mitochondria and the quantum side of things. But if you're doing all of the things, you're eating well, you're exercising, you're managing stress, but your body is holding on to that weight, it's not those calories that are at the end of your fork. You can't end up and have a perfect, quote, perfect, but you still end up and have a mitochondrial energy problem. The mitochondria are the powerhouse of our cells. They are responsible for that food that you're putting in your mouth, creating it into an energy. And so in order to find what is going to work optimally, this is why, again, everyone is individual. Your body is going to prioritize that survival over fat loss. So to expand on your, fasting harder, restricting more, it is going to end up and lead to a sluggish metabolism. It's going to low energy. I've had people say I'm cold, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And it doesn't, my favorite thing, it doesn't matter what I do, I hold on to weight. And that again is where you have to look at the mitochondria. You have to end up and look at these circadian hormones.
Yep.
Prioritize that circadian rhythm. Get your morning sunlight. Limit your blue light. And yes, all of this is going to sound super simple. One, majority of it's free. Yes, you have to buy food, but majority of it's free. Prioritizing your circadian rhythm, getting that morning sunlight. I can't tell you how many people are like, what's that going to, why is something so simple, but it's so powerful?
It
And
definitely is.
eating that whole food, protein, healthy fats, um, foods, and I'm going to word this wisely here, foods that are going to fuel your mitochondria. Some people, what I eat, some people may not be able to eat. Some people may end up and have a problem with oxalates and can't handle potatoes. Some people have issues with histamines and can't tolerate avocados. So eat the foods that fuel your mitochondria and that your body tolerates and doesn't create inflammation. On that note, manage your stress. You've seen it as well as I do. Chronic
Yeah.
stress damages, and the body will hold on to it. But if you do red light, if you do breath work, if you do tapping, any of these is going to support the body. Strength training. I can't tell you how important it is to move daily. That could just be walking. Walk down your driveway. If the best that you can do is walk to your door, walk to your door. We're such a sedentary society. We need to end up and move more. And I'm
Correct.
not talking about hours in the gym. Get out and walk around your yard. And trust me, if I can do it in the cold, many of you can acclimate to the cold.
Right.
But then,
Well,
yes,
and people think that, oh, if I go outside in the cold, like what you do and I do, I'm going to get sick. So
it
what do you
actually
would, yeah, go ahead, address that.
it actually boosts the mitochondrial health, and it boosts the immune system. So the old, you're gonna get sick if you go out in the cold is not actually what's going to happen. Not to say that if you're out there, routinely and you're not doing it wisely, that you may not come down with something, but many times the body actually converts and creates an infrared energy based off the cold, and it will help to boost the immune system.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
So, and then yes, optimizing and getting that sleep, because when I talk about the circadian hormones, part of that is the leptin, and the leptin has to dock at night to the hypothalamus. That is what tells our body, hey, we have energy to use. We can downregulate the ghrelin and not be ravenously hungry the next day, eat our meals, but we don't have to eat, 3,000, 5,000 calories, or restrict to try and force our body into doing lipolysis, which in return ends up and creates stress hormones from the adrenals. But we're able to have that leptin dock to the hypothalamus, controlling the cortisol, and then regulating our insulin and becoming more insulin sensitive instead of insulin resistant.
Yeah.
So it's not always eating less, moving more. And that's, again, going back to what started me on this whole tangent was the meal prepping and not putting my macros. I don't post my macros. I don't post if it's a keto day or it's a carb day or paleo day. I left the dietary camps. I end up and I make sure I have adequate protein. And then I end up and I have a fuel source.
Right. Right. And the other thing that I found interesting when I spoke to that group was I talked about how I have started incorporating healthy carbs.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the response to that, Becky?
Which it was very interesting. What is healthy carbs?
Yeah.
And it's like, I was shocked to a point, which, I mean, I guess I should realize that we have gotten so far away from, and a lot of influencers out there think that carbs are the enemy, right?
Yeah.
Carbs are going to kill us. Carbs are, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, just look through Facebook and Instagram. Sorry, friends, I know you're watching. But you end up and you get smashed with it every day.
Yeah.
The carbs are gonna, carbs are awful. But it's not necessarily the carbs that are going to kill you. It's the type of carbs. So I'm not talking about going out and getting, pretzels and bonbons.
Or ice cream.
Or ice cream, or, Swedish fish. That's not what I'm talking about when I end up and I talk about creating metabolic flexibility with carbs. I'm talking whole foods, 99% of you, seasonal, nutrient dense foods. So that can mean things like root vegetables. That can mean things like squashes. That can mean, for some, that can end up and even mean just your fermented carbs, your kimchi, your sauerkraut. Some people end up and tolerate low glycemic fruits. Some people, maybe you're in California and oranges are in season, or Florida. You,
Mhm.
you poor friends that are beyond us that are like 40 degrees right now.
Well, in
Um,
Florida right now, they're just coming out of the strawberry season is
mm,
winding down for them, right?
yeah.
So, you also have to look at what's in season in your area on what you should be eating, because it's telling your body kind of what's going on. I always say, I can promise you, there's no bananas that grow in Texas, especially where I'm at in Texas, and you won't ever see me eating a banana. Um, but yeah, it was interesting that people just didn't know what, and they asked me, what is a good carb? And it's like, well, I mean, to me, that was also a loaded question in a way, because it's like, again, what good carbs work for me may not work for somebody else. So I even kind of hesitated. It's like, like a sweet potato, like last night I had asparagus with, I had chicken. We ran to Chili's because we had to go get groceries. And so, literally, this was my menu at Chili's. I got the grilled chicken, and instead of french fries, I got asparagus. That is what I had. Oh, and
Yeah.
I had a little bit of guacamole. I let them put that on top. That's what I had. And so I even say it's even possible to go out to eat. You can request how you want things done. Um, there's a little local Mexican restaurant in town that we go to, and we always get the fajitas and we get shrimp, and I eat the meat, right? And I just didn't feel like, I'm like, do you just have like a bacon wrapped shrimp? Excuse me. And the answer was no. But you know what? I asked. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the thing. It's like, well, you know, I made the mistake one time of asking them for butter and they brought out margarine. And I'm like, no, I need butter. Do you have butter? And they looked at me like they didn't know what I was talking about. Um, but so things like that. But I'm not afraid to ask what I want or need in a restaurant. And I have literally sat in restaurants and not eaten because I'm not going to eat the junk.
Mm-hmm. It's the processed carbs that lead to the blood sugar spikes. So the processed fast, uh more of a simple carb is the fast digesting. It causes those massive swings and then the crashes, right? For some that can even be things like some grains that cause it,
Yes.
aka rice. Can end up and be problematic for some people, but the healthy carbs are more of like the slower digesting. They have that fiber in there. They support the gut health, the gut diversity, and the gut microbiome, and all of that. um Again, if you can get them seasonally aligned, we're coming into the time where they're in more of abundance. There's less of abundance in the wintertime. And so as we start to create this diversity and change what we are eating, the gut gets that signal that we are changing seasons as well. So there's two ways that we end up when we get this circadian signal: our eyes, our skin, our eyes and our skin, and then our gut. So what we are consuming gives off a light code to our system. And that's where, like you said, eating the banana in Texas doesn't necessarily happen because it doesn't grow, right? But things like a sweet potato would, or the
Mhm.
asparagus would, or
A
um,
cucumber.
yeah, So those type of things would end up and grow. Now, again, going back, progress over perfection. So
Yes.
there's times where you may end up and have something, right? Say it's a tomato in
Dec
April,
in
and
December. Yeah.
normally it doesn't grow till later, right? Kind of like me having cauliflower right now. There's a few of those foods that are low in deuterium. They can transition through the seasons. They're not going to be problematic. But then there's other foods that definitely carry that higher side of things that you need more of that UV light to help with conversion of the carbs.
Yes, absolutely. And avoiding, people don't even know about avoiding dirty oils.
Hmm.
That's a big one. I will ask a restaurant to cook things in butter or olive oil. Um, Are they always perfect? No, right? But by gosh, I limit that. I find those inflammatory for my body, and it is inflammatory for everyone's body. We're talking about avoiding canola oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil, um, fish oil, hydrogenated oil, margarine, peanut oil, soybean oil. Let's see, what's another one? Sunflower oil, vegetable oil, and vegetable shortening. Yes, your Crisco is not good for you.
Hmm. Yeah, use things like butter, tallow, ghee, avocado oil,
Yes,
olives, avocados.
yes. Don't use the Pam cooking spray. you
Yeah.
know, they they have, there is avocado spray that you can get. It's usually right next to the Pam cooking spray. Get that. Things like that. So it just I realized too that we've like you said, we've gotten so far away from things. People have done too many of the WW right?
Hmm.
And you went by points. You weren't necessarily looking at the food. I mean, I remember years and years ago, it was like, well, a corn dog from Sonic was within my points that day. And it's like, holy cow.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. And so that transfers to other people too. What they don't know, they don't know. And one of the things I do tell people is, you know what? At the very least, stay on the outer edge of the grocery stores. Don't go in the inner aisles, period.
Yep.
Stick with your Whole Foods. That's your best bet.
Yep. Absolutely. And as seasons start to change, shop your farmers markets too.
Yeah.
That's supporting local people, right? I have a dairy farm that I can go and get my milk from. This last fall we went out to the potato farm and we dug potatoes. It's things like that. Get to know your local people, your local farms, support those, small businesses as well. um, and then that will also help you with eating and knowing what's in season.
Right. Yeah, because if your local market isn't carrying it, it's probably not in season.
Yep.
Definitely. Well, for not knowing what we were going to talk about tonight, we sure just did a 50-minute talk, didn't we?
We did, and I don't necessarily see any questions, so unless someone has questions in the last few minutes here, I know you've had a long day, so we can
I
wrap
have.
this up unless someone's
And
got questions.
speaking of long day, what did I tell you before we started? I said I am not getting on our BNC meeting tonight. I am shutting down. I am going to bed early. I am very tired. I have another 2, 4, 6 hour. I have 3 2-hour classes to teach tomorrow, so I need sleep. So I'm gonna shut down and not push anything more right now. But that's identifying what my body needs, not
Mhm,
necessarily, yeah, I would love to get on our meeting tonight. I would love to interact with our members, but not tonight. Tonight is taking care of Sherry, and that's what I'm going to do. But it's
mhm.
recognizing those things. It's about saying no when you need to say no sometimes. So, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
right? So, yeah, tell everyone I said hi.
I will. I will be over there, and I will sure tell them.
That's funny.
But
And also, I'm going to ask everyone to do me a favor, both of us a favor. Can you please comment and like and subscribe because it helps with the algorithm. That was easy. Let's try that again. Algorithms. So the more likes, the more comments, and the more subscriptions that we get, we can build a larger audience. We are not, no one sponsors us. This is something that Becky and I do because we want to help people. We want to help people heal the whole body. And so it goes just beyond nutrition. It goes every part of your body, body, mind, heart, soul. Like, yeah. So we're very into that. So again, if you haven't subscribed, please do. Please comment. We do read them. And follow us both on our social medias. We definitely enjoy that as well. We're not going to tell you our macros, but
and also before we sign off for the evening, I just want to say congrats to both of us on our upload. We ended up and we had 225 uploads today. So this will make
Yay.
it 226 uploads, but we did end up and hit that milestone. So it's a lot of work when it's just the two of us and we don't have those sponsors trying to get this out there, trying to get the views, trying to get it, but we're still dedicated to putting content out there. So you guys make it the reason why we end up when we show up every week. So we love that feedback from you guys because it helps keep us going.
It does. It really does. That's why I said, do me a favor. But, well, I'm done for the evening. I think it's time
Awesome.
for me to shut down and get some good sleep. And I'm going to go in, I'm going to do some breath work, relax. I will have, well, and one of the things that at sunset, you'll see that I have my phone is on red, right? So the phone goes on red, and then I also have the glasses on, so but I'm not going to be playing on this thing. When I go lay down, I'm going to actually put some music on and just do some breath work and relax. So, anyway, that's Sherry's night tonight.
Sounds like a plan. You have a wonderful evening shutting down, and we will see you all next week. Have a wonderful evening, all.